What's going on, guys? Sam Adams here, and welcome to On the Topic Of. And today we're going to be talking about Far Cry Primal, which is a game that's coming out on February the 23rd, and in anticipation of that release date, which is about 1 month out at the time of making and uploading this video, they went ahead and released a new Takkar trailer. So I will link that right here, somewhere around my face or something like that, and I will also link it in the description box down below so that you can go and watch that trailer and then come back and we'll have a nice little discussion on it. So assuming you went and watched the video, now let's go ahead and jump into it. So I've gone through and made some notes on the trailer, kind of starting with the beginning of it and just going through the trailer. So it pretty much starts off with you drinking a mixture which appears to be made by some kind of witch doctor in a tribal ceremony, which is a pretty interesting thing, and it definitely sets the mood for the entire game. It's notable that it has an eyeball floating in it. That might mean something later on. Maybe that's the face of an enemy or something like that. But that definitely means to me that you're going to see more missions like those Shangri-La missions that we saw in Far Cry 4, or the pot-induced adventure missions that were in Far Cry 3. Those weird little dream missions, it seems like with the witch doctor being a factor in the game, those are probably going to make a comeback. And I think that that's awesome, because that's really one thing that always kind of set Far Cry apart from other first-person shooters, is that it not only has a grip in reality, it not only has you fighting these drug lords and warlords, but it also has something that's kind of like a fantasy kind of element to it, kind of like Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, how it was just really far-fetched and kind of out there. That's one thing that I always loved about Far Cry, and with these witch doctors, I can't wait to see what they do with it. So after that little section of the trailer, we go into the indigenous people of the area, checking out their everyday lives, and this is really where the game shows off what visuals it's going to have to present to players. Now, as we all know, this is definitely rendered on a PC that only has Far Cry Primal on it, that is tuned specifically to make the game look good, and is actually built specifically to show off the game in this particular trailer, more than likely. But even that being said, the lighting looks great, I have to admit that. The woodland African setting looks beautiful, and it has a livelihood about it that you would expect from this kind of game, and the people and animals in it look very realistic. So if that kind of thing can actually be done on my PC or a PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, then it looks like a really good looking game. Then the trailer goes on to show that there are definitely a lot of Primal Warfare kind of things going on here. Obviously you have people hunting animals and animals hunting people. That's just something you would expect from this kind of time period. But there are also tribes hunting other tribes, and there's actually a quote that says, "Maybe Ool feed you to Udum tribe," which means that Ool, you know, the main bad guy that has been announced to be this game's antagonist, so to speak, he is going to be leading the Udam tribe, and presumably the Udam tribe is going to be trying to take over the rest of the tribes in the area. So that's kind of the plot that I'm gathering from the game so far, and that sounds definitely pretty interesting. The trailer then goes on to show other villages being pillaged and entire lives being destroyed. Yeah, someone's just pillaging the village, and we have to assume that that is Ool and the Udam tribe. So then it is announced that you will be playing as Takkar, who is supposed to save his tribe, and it doesn't show it in this trailer, but in a previous trailer, you play as the Beastmaster, who is Takkar, and he has pretty much control over all of the animals. He is one with nature, so to speak, and so he can sick a cheetah on an enemy, he can sick a lion on a cheetah, maybe even the mammoths he can control, and it has to be kind of assumed that this is where the leveling system is going to come into play with Far Cry Primal. Of course, if you haven't played Far Cry 3 or Far Cry 4, you don't really know how this works, but there's pretty much a giant menu of different perks, a lot like Assassin's Creed Syndicate, where you can upgrade your kind of armory, so to speak, and you can get different kinds of abilities that allow you to interact with the environment, interact with animals in the environment in different ways that make the missions a little bit easier and give you alternate ways to do that. And so since Takkar has control over all these animals, you have to assume that maybe you can start off controlling owls and birds to distract the enemy, and then you can upgrade it to where you can control mammoths, and then you can upgrade it to where you can control saber-toothed tigers. That would be a pretty interesting leveling system that sounds like a pretty good idea, and I hope it's definitely in the game. So later on in the trailer, you're given the task of killing Ool and restoring the homeland, which is followed up by some more action shots of the combat and whatnot, and making the game look as actiony as possible, and then the phrase "rise above extinction." So what are my final thoughts with this trailer? First off, I think it's a little bit too soon for a new Far Cry game, even though it was still pushed back to spring 2016. Because Far Cry 4 came out, felt like it was very shortly after Far Cry 3. It kind of snuck up on us in the same way that Far Cry Primal has already snuck up on me, and It felt very unfulfilling, Far Cry 4 did. It felt like there was a lot more that could have been done. It felt like the game was glitchy whenever it was first released, and it had just an underwhelming story. Now, that story was still enjoyable, don't get me wrong, but I feel like so much more could have been done if there were just, maybe about another 12 months or so of development put into the game. It could have been on the same level as Far Cry 3. I definitely don't think Far Cry needs to be a yearly franchise or even a bi-yearly franchise. I could definitely see one Far Cry game per generation. I think that would be a beautiful kind of setup for Far Cry because there's so much to experience in each individual game, especially going back to Far Cry 3. With that island and Jason Brody, you could just, do your little paragliding thing for hours and hours and hours and search all these caverns. There's so much to do in each individual Far Cry game that you don't really need one every 2 years. It would be like if they made an Elder Scrolls every year or every other year. We don't need that. People are still doing stuff in Skyrim today. Now, my other worry with Far Cry 4 is with the realism of the animals. Now, of course, in the trailer, they all look really good. The animals look very realistic, and that's the kind of thing that we would expect. But the same kind of thing we saw in Far Cry 4 might happen with Far Cry Primal, where they look really good in the trailer, but in the game, they don't look as real, and it definitely took me out of the moment in Far Cry 4 whenever I would come upon an elephant. It was very clear that it was not a, It did not have a kind of thought process behind what it was doing. It was very clear that it was a pre-rendered, just generic digital elephant. And of course that sounds very nitpicky, but whenever you are focusing on Far Cry Primal with primal animal instincts and you are the Beastmaster, these kind of animal things, the animal aspects of the game, have to be paid extra attention. They have to be given a little bit more detail to ensure that the player is completely consumed in that realism. That's going to be a major part of Far Cry Primal, and I really hope Ubisoft can nail that one. So aside from those two little qualms that I have with the game, I have to say that Far Cry Primal looks like it's going to be a pretty awesome game, and it's definitely going to be a new defining game for the Far Cry franchise, whether that be good or bad. Now, I do hope that they get the visuals right. If they get the visuals right, if they maintain the quality of gameplay that they've had over the years, then Far Cry Primal is going to be an A+ game. I can't wait to play it. But what I'm really excited for is that it's kind of pushing Far Cry in a new kind of direction, because with Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4 being the two games that are in everyone's recent memory, they're pretty much the exact same game. You're fighting a warlord, you're taking over these little bases and whatnot, and you're just kind of have the exact same weapons, missile launchers, RPGs, assault rifles, handguns, etc. It's pretty much the exact same thing. With this, you're getting new kinds of warfare, new kinds of ancient primal weapons, new kinds of abilities, because you have the witch doctors, you have the beast master kind of thing going on, so you can pretty much do whatever you want with all of that, and that's very exciting. With Far Cry Primal being the kind of game that it is, I think it's going to be a huge redefining factor in the entire Far Cry franchise, and that's something that really needs to happen. So there you guys have it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, drop me a like down below and comment what you think about the Far Cry Primal Takkar trailer or Far Cry Primal in general. Are you excited to see Far Cry Primal? Are you going to be buying it on day one? What do you think? Leave it in the comment section down below. And if you are new to the channel or you've never seen any of my other content, I do upload new stuff like 3 or 4 days a week depending on the week, so there's always something new right here on the channel when you drop by to watch some videos. And as always, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for watching this particular video. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.